Right now, we have the portfolio with the hinge, and we have the tracing paper with the hinge. We need to put this together with this. I'm going to open this up. The hinge is on the back side. This is going to flip over so that the hinge slips over the top and will be on the back side. Okay? So that's going to look like that. But now we have to tape it down. So I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to lay it down. You want to make sure that it's not askew and poking out in either direction. And you want to make sure that it's nice and flush at the top. I'm going to take two pieces of my artist tape, one here and one here, to make sure that nothing moves. And then I'm going to take a piece of tape that's long enough to go the length of the width of my paper. I'm going to start in the center and I'm going to go right up against that edge. Do you see there's just about a millimeter that's left? Okay. And I'm going all the way to the end in that direction and all the way to the end in the other direction. Then I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to lay it down against the edge very carefully, and I'm going to cut this excess tape. And I'll do the same thing on this side. Line it up with the edge and cut and peel it up. Next, I'm going to peel this piece of paper or tape up here and this piece up here, and then we'll flip it around and take a look at what we have. So now we have that. It looks like that on the back with the hinge and the hinge. And then this is what the front side looks like. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out where our paint chips will sit. So we're going to open this up, and the very first thing that I need to do is find the center line in this direction and the center line in this direction. So I'm going to use my ruler, and the length is 11.5. So I'm going to find the center of that, which is 5 3/4. And I'll make a little mark there at the top and a little mark here at the bottom. And I'm going to make the lightest of pencil marks, the lightest possible pencil mark in the history of the world, so that I can erase it later. You see how light that is? Very, very light. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the width here. And the width is 9 inches, so half of 9 is 4.5. And I'll do 4.5 there, and 4.5 here. And I'll connect those lines. Again, just a very light touch. There we go. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my my hue guide, and I want red to be, here I'll do it so that you can see it. No, I'll do it so this is upside down for you. So the red wedge is up facing the top of the page, and there's a line that separates the top of the circle from the bottom, and that line is right under orange, yellow, and violet blue. So I'm going to line up that line with the very pale pencil line that I have on either side, and I'm going to make sure that the center of this wedge lines up with this line. So do you see it's not quite center? The center would be about there. So I'm just going to bring it over like that. Okay. Then I'm going to take some of the artist tape, and I'm going to tape it down, one here and one here. Okay. Now keep in mind that this is just taped here for now so that we can put on our chips, but we will peel it up and put it on the front side of our tracing paper. So when you glue down your chips, you want to make sure that it is glued right up against it, but not on top, okay? For this, we're going to use glue, and so I'm going to use a touch of glue here. Just the regular white Elmer's or PVA, and I'm going to glue the back. Pay attention to how I'm holding this. I'm just very steady with my hands and then switching positions, but again, that paint chip does not move. And then I've got glue underneath my finger so I can pick this right up. Now this is a reject chip, so keep in mind that there's a little white right there. It's also not the red that we're using, it's kind of an orange. So don't let that confuse you. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the edges don't have excess glue. So I'm just going to run my finger around the edges here. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place this chip right up against this edge. Remember that the red that we are using in our color wheel, and which is straight from the tube in the gouache kit that you have, is more of a magenta. Don't get that confused. Don't get confused with that sort of the traditional red. All right, so the one that's straight out of the tube is going to go right on top. And I'm going to take my bone folder and a waste sheet. I'm going to put this right on top, and I'm going to bone this down with my bone folder. Now, if you don't have a bone folder, you can press it down with your thumbs, and I'm using my body weight to make sure that it's nicely adhered. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to glue one more for this demo. So I'm flipping over the next chip. In this case, it's another reject chip. Now yours would be the red violet, and you'd make your way all the way around clockwise, okay? But in this case, I have just an extra chip that happens to be purple, and I'm going to use that one, and I'm going to glue this one. So I'll take my white glue, and I'll do the same thing. I'll glue out the back. And once again, make sure that you don't have glue on your fingers and that glue migrates from one thing to the next. Just make sure that you don't have excess glue. And then I'm going to take that one and I'm going to go over it right against the edge, not on top, right against the edge. And do you see how this, if lined up right in between the edge of the wedges, do you see how it overlaps right there? That is what it's supposed to do. Okay, so I'm going to just do that, just like that. Again, just make sure that the edge of that chip is lined up with the edge of your hue chart, and it's overlapping right there. So the next one will overlap this one, and then the next one will overlap this one, and so on and so forth. Okay, and again, you can either use your thumbs to really make sure that that's nicely adhered, or you can take a waste sheet, put it on top, and use the bone folder. Okay, you don't want to have the bone folder go right on top of the paint chip because it will hurt the surface. Now, let's pretend that I've gone all the way around. So then you're going to peel this up very carefully. The reason we use the artist tape and not regular masking tape is because this will peel up very nicely. So I'm going to take this away, and then once your paint chips are all down, you're going to take a white Mars eraser and you're going to erase this and this and this line. Make sure that everything is nice and clean. There might be fingerprints elsewhere. Make sure that those are all removed. Okay. Then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to flip this over, the tracing piece of paper over, and you're going to take a piece of tape and I'm sort of pulling it tight, and I'm taping this down. Then you're going to take your cut hue chart and you're going to flip it over onto your waste sheet. And I'm going to take my glue stick and I'm going to go from the inside out. Sometimes you can look at the surface in the light and see where you've you have gone over it. Do you see how there are chunks of glue? Just make sure you don't have chunks of glue. So I'm just removing those a little bit with my bone folder. You could use your finger too. Just get rid of those. You don't want to have bumps. Then I'm going to flip this over. I'm making sure that red is facing the top and then it's lined up with the very edge of that paint chip that's underneath. And you would have all of your chips here, so you want to center it on top. Then you're going to take the back of your hand and just press this down. The reason we use a glue stick for this and not Elmer's glue or PVA is because Elmer's glue and PVA introduces too much moisture to the tracing paper, and the tracing paper can't handle it, and so it wrinkles and warps on you. Okay, once that's done, you can take another waste sheet of paper and you can use your bone folder to make sure that that's nicely adhered, or you can continue to just make sure that that's nice and secure with your hand. Then you can remove the tape and you are done. Thanks.